Hello everyone and welcome to another build video. Like the title says, 2 builds, 1 guy. If you have expected some other kind of content when you clicked on this thumbnail, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but there's nothing else here than 2 sexy, big, black cases. By the time you are watching this video, it's CES time. So Happy New Year to everyone, hope you are doing good, and a lot of new stuff will be featured in this video for the first time, like the latest MSI EK collaboration, the Z690 TORPEDO EKX with a very special monoblock kind of thingy. These cases should also be released at CES or around CES by MSI. This is the Prospect 700. We have the new quantum radiators, we will show them. We will show the new quantum vector 2 GPU blocks, and I guess I should stop talking now and start prepping these cases for the builds. I'm gonna do 2 builds at the same time. I will probably jump from one case to another. Also, one main thing that we will be doing here is talk about Matrix 7 a lot, because we have a very special distribution plate for this case. We will talk about Matrix 7 and why Matrix 7 makes building custom loop liquid cooled PCs easier, and I hope that we will just show just that by building 2 PCs at the same time. Let's get cracking. All the DDR5 in the world. Let's stop for a while and talk about the case. MSI is not known for doing cases, but this is a great example of a good case if you ask me. It's sleek, but at the same time has enough ventilation. As you can see, the front ventilation grill is moved away quite a lot from the front side of the fans. There's a bracket inside here which you can also flip to bring the fans back and forward. This will help with the mounting of the radiators. The top cover also has some nice ventilation. Both front and top have air filters. This is magnetic, so it's a pretty interesting case to work with, and you will find out more about it during this build. In order to get started, I have to disassemble most of the case, so I'm gonna be doing some more screwing. Or should I say, I will just start screwing. So maybe if you clicked on this video and I said start screwing, maybe something's there. So this case comes with 2 additional brackets, yes, to replace this thingy. So one is just a flat piece, and the other one, so this one you would use this way. So if you have an extended ATX motherboard, you would place these grommets on here, and then you would have the proper length of the motherboard tray without it looking funny with a big motherboard with the cable just going somewhere around it. This way you have the cable grommet holes on the right place where you should have it with an extended ATX motherboard. So somewhere over here. We are doing this with a standard ATX sized motherboard, so we don't need these. Time to undo the cables. All of the RGBs come loose, and the fans. Neat feature of the case is this cable railing, which makes your cable routing easier, and these Velcro strips. I know that this is not the first case to have these, but it's good that good when manufacturers keep the good things. There we have it. So in order to mount the distro plate, which we just shown, you have to remove this part, which is unfortunate because all the cables go through these holes. So you have to do what I just did, and then mount back this, which will hold the distro. So above the bracket which holds the radiator that I mentioned, it goes something like this. It has some rubber grommets, and it can go in 2 height positions, and you can also flip it around, so that if you need more space inside the case for a fat radiator, then you can flip it, which we will do. because even though we don't use a fat radiator in this one, we have to flip it because of the Matrix 7 measurements, which we will explain later. So I have to remove the fans and redo the cables and then install some radiators. But first, remove the shroud. And I think before I start even touching this, I'm gonna disassemble the other case as well so we can work in parallel. We're gonna use EK fans only because these are 140mm fans. All of the radiators that we have are 120 in width. And yeah, we're just gonna replace all of the fans with EK Vardar fans. No EK Quantum fans yet. Coming soon, TM. One more reason why I removed all the fans is because this build is gonna have white fans, which means that I should also remove this one. And if I remove this one, I'm gonna remove this one as well. I mentioned that we're gonna use EK fans in these, but not these EK fans. These are just here so that I tease them. These are the new EK phase fans. These are also pre-production samples. So this is how the new fans will look. In these builds we will just use the EK Vardars. These are the new fans, and interesting things about these fans: magnetic levitation bearings. You also have a nice metal cover which is pretty neatly centered so you don't get the hopping effect. Interchangeable corners, so you can pick any colors of these rubber corner dampers. And the cabling system is gonna be pretty interesting with these mini 8-pin cables, so that if you have multiple fans in one line, like on a radiator, this is the only thing that you have to do, and you have no cable cluttered behind your fan, radiator, and then you will have a single extender cable which will go split into the power cable, which you can plug into the board or somewhere, and the RGB cable which can plug into your RGB source. This will be the RGB version and this will be the all black version. There will also be a white version of these. We don't have samples. Like I said, these are really early pre-production samples, but it's gonna look like this. So EK badgy metal on the front, on the back, and interchangeable rubber corners. Release time April, something, April-ish. We have showed renders of these fans for the last expo in summer. Now we have physical samples, so it's moving along quite well. With these things we have to do a lot of quality testing, so everything's fine, and so that these fans can have the long warranty as they have. Okay then, intermission done. These are the fans that we'll be using now. Buy them, especially the white ones, because I like them. Buy them. Before we move along, I will mount the distro plates. So this is one mount for the distro plate for one case, and the other one for the second case. This goes in like this, so like that. So this distribution plate will work for, this is the CPU section, in this case monoblocks. This is for the top radiators. This is for the bottom radiator, and the GPU section, depending on if you have your GPU in the first PCI slot or the second one, you will use these two or these two. These two, I believe, are here that if you're using the GPU in a vertical setup, so that you still have parallel tubes running, even if you have a AIB card which is wider, even if you have a reference card, even if you have a vertically placed card, it will all work perfectly with this distro plate. That's something that Matrix 7 is about, so that you have multiple choices with the same case, with the same setup, without ruining your tubes, without having to need to rebend tubes if you are doing a rebuild in your case. So that's about the first step that we have to mention with Matrix 7. And now I'm going to mount these distro plates to these mounting brackets. And the the unforgettable torque screwdriver, 0.6 Newton meters. By now. Literally, I'm gonna try to assemble these two cases with only basically one torque screwdriver, because if you get one, you get 5 bits in it, I guess, yeah, 5. So 2 Phillips head screwdrivers, 1 Torx, and 2 Allen key bits for 2mm and 2.5. I believe that these are the only screws that you need for a PC case assembly liquid cooling. I have 2, so that I have one with the hex and one with the Phillips. Question: when you have multiple screws, do you do them all? So if you have a radiator with fans, do you do all of the screws, or you do just the 2 corners? If you're a sick person like me who does all of the screws, leave a comment and support me. I'm not gonna do all of the screws right now, but I'm gonna do them on the end, because I will probably have to move this up and down a bit to align it with the ports on the motherboard. If you don't have hard drives, like 3.5-inch hard drives, I recommend you remove the hard drive cages right away. It's gonna make your life very easy. Hard drive cages under this power supply shroud. This can also be removed. 3 screws at the front and 3 at the back. I'm gonna attempt to remove the hard drive cage without removing the shroud. I don't think it's promising. Oh, there it is. They've always told me I should use my head, and I'm using my head. Before we continue with the builds, we will talk about these radiators a bit. This is exactly how they will look. They will use M4 screws for the fans instead of the 632 UNC type. We will do full black versions of the most popular ones. So as you can see, these have the silver end pieces. I think these look absolutely beautiful. Let's check out the white one as well. Also silver end pieces. So the goal here to have these aluminum pieces available in green, red, blue, black. So every color that we have for the fitting rings, which means that if you want to have an absolutely customized color scheme, you will be able to change the end pieces on your radiators. But like I said, we will make all black versions of the most popular sizes. So it's the P240 360 and the S240 360. Since we only have 2 S radiators at this moment, so by the time that this video is released, these will be already on the production line. These are early samples, but like I said, they will look absolutely like this. This build right here will be themed black with some red accents. This is going to use the MSI MPG Z690 Carbon EKX. This is the more high-end build from these two. It will use a 12,700 CPU. But since we don't have P radiator samples yet, we're gonna just use 2 slims here. And this one, because the classic radiators are identical in size as the new surface radiators, we will use 2 Ps. So it's a bit funny that the lower spec case has more radiator cooling and the higher spec has less. But this is going to be a good opportunity for us to show these new radiators in action. One will go in the front, one will go in the top, and we'll right about now start assembling the front side. So this is what I mentioned earlier, that you can flip the frame so that you can move this plate back and forward for thicker and slimmer radiators. Let me demonstrate. It was in like this and the fans were from the inside, so you can put it, mount it like this, but you can also flip it and put it in like this. So right now I'm gonna put it like this and the radiator goes inside. That much fans. It's gonna be a lot of cables. I'm doing my signature thing of removing these stickers from the front side of the fans. I'm doing this because of the LEDs under the hub are shining upwards, which means that if I remove these stickers, I'm gonna get more light out of the fans. Since these fans are gonna be on the front side, I want more light to come out from the front side of the case. And because these will be mounted in pull from the other side, I don't need to bother with these stickers, so I'm just gonna leave them on. I have to be careful that if this goes in like that, you know, the cables have to be on that side. This is probably the most common mistake that people do, or at least I do, is when I assemble the radiators outside of the case, I have the mounting rail outside and I just mount the fans, and then I figure it out that I have the fans flipped on the wrong side. I'm gonna be smart. Before doing the fans, I'm gonna put on just a few screws so that I can level the radiator with the distro plate. I'm gonna put in 2 screws, and I'm gonna do the same with the other case as well. I guess I can mount the backside fans. I can mount the backside fans because I only need the axis from the front to level the distro plate. I should also install extenders here so that I have access. So these fans are in pull mode and they are gonna go like so. The rules of the Matrix 7 says that everything is based on 7mm increments, and basically I guess that everything started with these static extenders of 7mm, 14 and 28. So by adding 7mm you get to these sizes, and then it transferred to each product. Because we are starting to handle fittings, especially the black ones, I'm gonna put on some gloves because the black fittings are especially sensitive to skin from your fingers. When you tighten them, they remain whitish between the grooves, and then you have to clean it. So just to avoid any contamination. For this case, the recipe says that if you have an S radiator, you need 2 times 28 and the angle fitting. And if you would have a P radiator here, you would need 14 plus 28. And if you would have an X radiator, which is the thickest, you would just need a 28mm extender and the angle would go straight to the port. So let's see how does Matrix 7 will work. Does it align? Yes, it does. So that's what you need to reach that port with an S radiator, and now we will do the extenders onto the other one as well, because once the radiator is in there, it's gonna be hard to add the extenders. Of course, you can do this with bending. You don't need to use the extenders, but if you want to have it really simple without bending, you just buy 2 extenders and you're just done with straight tubes. Or you can buy pre-bent tubes and then cut them to length, but the easiest way is to just get 2 extenders, and you will see later why is it easy to just use the extenders instead of pre-bent tubes and then trying to snug it into both fittings. That's it. I'm gonna remove this one because we have proved our point that this works perfectly. For me to align the distro plate, I have to install the motherboard so that I see the height of the ports, and then when I'm done with aligning the distro plate with the board, then I will align the radiator with the distro. Motherboard time. Safety first. Okay, this is the MSI MPG Z690 Carbon EKX. We have a 12700K CPU in there. It's gonna be plenty for gaming. I'm gonna install the monoblock. Check. Backplate. Thermal pad Z's. Screwdriver 1, screwdriver 2. SSD from MSI. Screws. Quick check of the manual. 0.75 goes on the chokes, 1.5 goes on the VRM, and then the 1.5 goes on the SSD. Okay, let's do it. monoblock boy can come in. Interesting thing about this motherboard, which was mentioned by Mike from MSI during his visit, is you don't have the sharp pins here anymore. This is special manufacturing technology. If you remember older motherboards, they have like millions of pins here and they get stuck to your clothes and stuff like that, but this is something else. He also said that improves the signal quality on the motherboard, so it's also good for overclocking. I have some sweet DDR5. Done with the RAM. Now that we have the motherboard in, I can align the distribution plate. This is again a part when we start doing the Matrix 7 thingy. I need two 28mm extenders, but before I do, I'm gonna install the drain valve so that I don't forget. In order to make this work, you need to... Oh! We are touching fittings without gloves. No touching fittings without gloves. So the point is that if you have 28mm extenders here and the angle fittings, all you need to do is to have some pre-bent tubes, cut them to length, and they will perfectly go to those two ports. Extender, and for the first time in this build, you'll get to chop some tubes with my special machine. I noticed that I say I'm gonna a lot of times. Can someone count it? So I'm gonna use red accent rings on the fittings. Both builds are going to use 14mm HDC fittings. This build is gonna be all black. That's gonna be set in titanium. And the rings. For the first time in my life, I'm trying an elegant way of opening this packaging. And then I just do this. The good thing about this is when I figure out one, then the next one has to be exactly the same length, and it's gonna be easy to replicate this side. So if the camera guy wants to come here, or I'm gonna make his life easier, you can check by looking at the top if the tube is too long. As you can see, that tube is too wide, so I need to chop off from that side so it's parallel with these rails. So right now I'm doing 4 identical tubes. Why? Because the tubes from this build are going to be exactly the same as from that build. That's again one thing about Matrix 7, is that when you have one setup you can just swap around. So if you have one motherboard which is Matrix 7 compatible, and you have one more, just swap it out, everything's gonna be the same. Also, I don't mean to brag, but have you tried these EK tubes that are made in Germany? A few months back we have swapped our supplier for tubes. These are from Germany, and these are just so nice. You can hear how stiff they are, crisp. They are not soft, the way that acrylic tubes should be like. If you have this squealing sound, that means that the tube is hard, and that also means that it's harder to scratch. Now that the distribution plate is aligned with the motherboard, now I can align the front radiator with the distro plate, which means I have to drop it a few millimeters maybe. Then I can tighten some of the screws, add one fan, really tighten that fan, and then I can add 2 more fans so that I have it fixed. I need my testy tool. This is my testy tool for the level. So testy tool says dead on. Okay then. All 4, I can add a fan. Okay, so in the middle I'm gonna remind you again that new radiators have M4 threads, so it's going to be much easier for you to find replacement screws, but also much easier to pierce your radiators if you get the wrong size screws. Now what I can do is unscrew all of these and install the rest of the fans. Bottom tubes need fittings. Fittings need accent rings. First I'm going to do the shorter one, the inner one, because if I do the longer one then I don't have any more access to it. This might show that I have to raise the radiator a bit, which is very unfortunate because I have done all the 12 screws. Like I said, I'm doing 2 at the same time because the other build is going to be exactly the same. One locking ring gently on it, like that, and this, and then I'll just rotate the bottom part of the rotary to screw it into the extender. So as you can see by the Matrix 7 design, this is just a short straight tube. Very nice, Matrix 7, yes. Okay, the front radiator is done. Beautiful push-pull, fans on the front, fans on the back, bottom tubes are done. And now I will move to the top radiator. It's also going to be the same thing, so radiator extenders and straight onto these holes in the top, no complication, no drama. That's why we like Matrix 7. Let's do it. How many fittings do we need? 4 for the radiator, 4 for the GPU. Let's do them all right now so we don't have to deal with this later. This is the shorter one. It goes in like this. Yes, this is the inner one, the shorter one. Here I will need a 14mm extender and one more 14 here. So basically the level of this now equals to a P radiator. This is the S, the slim. The P performance is exactly 14mm taller. So now we're at the level of the P radiator, and now this is the outer one. The 28mm extender equals, if you want to go over a angle fitting, so if you want to go over this fitting here, you need a 28, like that. If we test fit this, it's gonna be perfectly aligned with the top 2 holes, just like that. I will do the fans. Let's quickly install the GPU block, the brand new GPU block. This is the first time that you will see a live sample of the new Vector GPU block. The Vector square, but we say it Vector 2. The square is just a trick so that we are special, because it is indeed a special block. Make it nice and clean before I present it. Is the new Vector 2 Trio full cover GPU block. Neat thing. Are you watching? Are you watching? Magnetic cover, which you can flip around. So if you have a build the other way around, very easy to flip. You have magnets in the terminal. They hide the screws. Looks fantastic. That's one neat feature of it. The other neat feature is that the terminal is screwed onto to the cold plate, so it's not on the plexi. It's more rigid, so chances of cracking it are much lower and less. And then like this. And let's start applying the screws. So since this build will be all black, the backplate is also gonna be black. So if this is the GPU block, this is the backplate. There's some very special thing going on here also with the backplate. So pre-applied screws is also something that will happen with the new backplates. So the thing that holds the screw in is also the standoff for the backplate. So this means that you don't have to bother with the screws for the backplate. And the backplate also comes way around the block, and this part here also touches on this copper part. So if you really want to, you can put a really thin thermal pad there or even thermal paste, so that you have a kind of hybrid active cooling for the backplate as well, by the backplate touching the side of the cold plate. I'm gonna now check where do I need to add screws. Yep, there we have it. Let's look at this beauty once again. The LED is hidden on the long side of the GPU, not in the end anymore, so the whole block is gonna be lit up pretty nicely, and as you can see, the backplate is flush with the whole block. PCB covers it completely. It's really good looking. It's time to insert the GPU. And now it's time to cut some tubes. I have the fittings done. I don't like the alignment on this one, but if I bring it back a bit, it's gonna be a bit unscrewed. Maybe I'm just gonna do it like this so that the accent rings are aligned on the top and the bottom, like that. And now it's time to leak test to see if I messed up anything. And then for the last thing, I will add the heatsink to the D5, which is also black. And close. And wait. And once more, just to do this. 5 hours later. Leak testing seems to be good. I'm gonna leak test again when I replace the add the heatsink, because that requires the pump to be removed. But I will definitely insist that I replace this plug. So this is what I was talking about when I was mentioning the old plug and the new plug. This is the old plug, which doesn't have rounded edges. This doesn't work with the plug cover, and this is why I'm replacing this one, so that I can have an all black themed build. And apply the cover like that. Done. This is one of my favorite things that we released lately. These are the pump covers. Totally changes the look of your D5. Ooh, nice packaging. I haven't seen this yet. This is actually nice. It's one solid chunk of aluminum. And we're out. I will leave the power supply for the end, because now we'll start assembling the other system. Everything parallel, everything good, everything sexy. That's one big black case done. Let's move to the other big black case. With this one, I'm gonna start with a different approach, because it's basically my first Matrix 7 build ever. So I will start with the top radiator, because the top radiator is the only thing that doesn't move vertically. So I will do the radiator, and then I will know exactly how high does the distro have to be, and that's it. Then I can move to the motherboard, because even if I align it to the motherboard, you're not seeing if it's really straight or it's not straight, so it's better to fix it to something that's really not moving at all. So I will go grab some radiators and some fans and start with the top radiator, and then the front one, then the motherboard, and so on. So let's do it. I will need this, radiators, and some fans, white fans. Let me just check one thing. So up here, what do we have? We have 14 and 28 with an S. This equals to a P, which means I need a 28. Come closer. I've asked you once and I'm gonna ask you again. Are you also a person who has to install all 12 screws? Because I am. I'm gonna leave all the screws loose so I can slide back and forth. Okay. I think the distribution plate can go all the way down. This is actually very nice that I can access this whole thing without the front radiator. This is much better now. And this build is gonna be satin titanium with blue. And since I opened the last two packages nicely, I'm gonna be a savage with this one. Like that. So I need this port, and I most certainly don't need this plug. This Allen key is not sold in the EK web shop, but let me know if you like it. I'm gonna make it happen. I have the radiator aligned with the distro plate. I'm gonna tighten all the screws. Maybe not all of them, just at least 4 so it doesn't move around. Clickety click. I must not forget to do the other screws. I think this should be it. This is so satisfying. So we need some tubies. We have them pre-cut tubies from the other build. Just have to be careful not to scotch the tube. And one radiator is done. This is the MSI MAG Torpedo EKX. What's so special about this? We make very expensive monoblocks that we call ultra blocks, but then we also do very affordable blocks, which is called the EK Light block. The whole point of this collaboration with MSI that we're doing is that you'll be able to buy a liquid cooled motherboard for $369, including the block and a coupon code for the EK shop. I think it's 30 euros or 42 US dollars off from your cart. If you get this motherboard, then you will get a coupon code in the box and you'll be able to use it. What's the point here? The point here is that this is a very simple CPU blockish like thing, which is extended to the size of the VRM. The VRM, as you can see, has special heat sinks ready to accommodate this block. This block has only a stainless steel base, which is still a metal and is still a good conductor of heat. Here you have the heat sinks, factory heat sinks flat, which means that you don't have to remove the heat sinks or do any special disassembly with it. You just apply this block and some thermal pads, which means that this block also cools the VRM as well. Now, this is not the real high performance cooling which you get with monoblocks like in the Z690 Carbon EKX, where you have copper parts touching directly the VRM MOSFETs, but this still brings down a significant amount of temperature from the VRM. I'm not gonna say any numbers. We will leave that to reviewers to publish them. And with the lower tier motherboards, which have lower tier MOSFETs, cooling brings even more benefits than with the high-end ones. For this build, we are using a 12600K in this, which matches the price range of this motherboard as well. This is still a Z motherboard, which means that you can overclock your CPU nicely. This is such an early production sample that the standoff screws which have to be installed aren't even nickel plated, they are just brass. Nevertheless, This is a functioning sample. So we will assemble it. I will check if this has some protective foils that have to... Yes, it does have protective foils. So that's how the block looks. And before we put the block on, I'm gonna put in the SSD. Also, very important, this CPU monoblocky, blocky, light block is also Matrix 7 compatible, which means that it works with the same distro plate, that the tubes will be parallel, straight, and this is why, let me just not break the SSD. This is why I pre-cut the tubes when I was making tubes for this build. I was at the same time cutting the same tubes for this build as well. This is why we will be able to assemble this PC much faster. I need a sharper bit. This motherboard also has the toolless mounting for the SSDs. So this motherboard doesn't have a liquid cooled M.2 like the Carbon has. That's why the obvious price range difference. But like we said, it has other tricks up its sleeve. So here we would need thermal pads. I don't even have a manual for this, but it's so easy to do that I'm just gonna presume that I have to put pads here. Let's do the Ramses, the Gordon Ramsays. Let's put the motherboard in the case. Whilst we are here, laid back, I will install some fittings to the distro and start also assembling fittings. Just where's my 9mm, not gun, Allen key. Here's my 9mm here. Look at that. It's also a bit funny that I'm using the more premium and more expensive satin titanium fittings in the lower price range build, but I guess this is what you call artistic freedom. And I should have two very nice pieces of tubies already prepared. Let's see if the legend of the Matrix 7 is true. Oh no, okay. This is something I haven't kept into account, is that the ports are vertically the same, but back and forward are not the same. So these tubes from this build will not work, but one thing I have to do is cut from the length of it. It's gonna be fine. So it's still good. Let's just see how much I have to. Basically I have to chop off 2mm. Are we in? Are we flat? Are we parallel? Seems pretty good to me. And we're in. While we are here, laid back, buy this. Seriously, it's gonna transform the look of your pump. Whoops! Look at that. Front radiator and fans. Wait, while I'm here, I will do the fittings for the GPU. Should I install the extenders first? I should install the extenders first. Let's check. So here we have 28 and 28, which means that here I will need 14 once, angled 14, one more angled, and 28. Let me install some fittings here while I have full access. I will take two, thank you very much. This is how I should have done the first PC. Start from the top, leave the front open, to the motherboard. The inner side is the shorter one. There we will have only a 14mm, like so. This is the further one, this is the longer one. Oh, and we need a 28. And see if we have an alignment. Can I just slide it in like this? Yeah, the case can take it. Nice. Let's see if the legend of Matrix is true. GPU time. Something interesting to know about the Vector 2 blocks is that you will have 3 backplate options: nickel, black, and the satin titanium kind of finish. We call it silver when it comes to products. So GPU blocks and pump covers, it's all written like silver, but this color matches the satin titanium quite well. If you want to compare them, there it is. And this is why I have chosen this backplate to match with the rest of the fittings and everything. I prepared all of the pads so that we don't suffer here on camera. I will just apply some thermal paste. Lock and load, cameraman. This was quite quick with the screws. Once again, the backplate with the pre-applied screws makes it much easier to apply, just like that. The things that hold the screws in also act as standoffs. All works neatly together. There. This looks really nice, and the whole block. And this is how it looks from the back. And I just have to do this once again. Oh, edit. I'm gonna do this all day. Let's put it in. But for me to put it in, I have to remove the thumb screws for these two. This was too easy. Leak test time! I forgot a fan from the back side. Leak tester is still on, still holding, hasn't moved a bit. I will just undo it right now, let it hiss. I'm also testing the RGB. As you can see on the front side, we have some fans already running. It's always best to test. And then we'll do the power supplies for both cases, and we'll be done. We will start with the filling and some B-rolls. But first, the back side fan. And there we have it. 2 builds, 1 guy. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Literally, we built 2 PCs within, I don't know, a few hours. I think it took me more to do the cables than the 2 PCs themselves. That's it. I don't know what else to say. Check out this case. This is the MSI Prospect 700, due to release around when you are seeing this video. Of course, also the MAG Z690 Torpedo EKX, which is a groundbreaking thing. It's very simple, but I think that it will change a lot how people look at liquid cooling, and it will make liquid cooling even more popular based on its price and what it can offer in return. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for some more sexy B-roll. We will align the RGBs because this is just now running from the motherboard itself, so it's rainbow puke, but we will install some OS probably and set the RGB to red, and here it will be blue, so it matches the whole build. And subscribe if you like this video if you like this, because if you don't press that like, YouTube doesn't know that you like what you have seen, and this helps us much to continue doing such videos in the future. Thanks, bye bye.